The human teacher died shielding her students, except she's sitting up in medical bay asking about her lesson plans for tomorrow. Dr. Zilax dropped the neural scanner, its casing cracking against the sterile floor of Medical Bay 7. His primary manipulators trembled as he stared at the impossible sight before him. Emma Johnson, elementary school teacher from Earth, propped up on her elbows, blinking sleep from her eyes like she'd just woken from an ordinary nap. "Sorry, did I startle you?" Emma said, rubbing her face. "What time is it? Did I miss afternoon classes?" Nurse Azila made a sound somewhere between a gasp and a prayer in her native tongue. The monitoring equipment behind Emma's bed displayed readings that couldn't exist: cellular regeneration at 847% normal rates, energy absorption signatures that matched antimatter dissipation patterns, and a core body temperature that had peaked at 4,000 degrees Kelvin 17 minutes ago. According to YouTube analytics, 99.6% of viewers are not subscribed. That's a huge number. By subscribing the channel that is completely free, you'll help support the channel and never miss fresh content. "Ms. Johnson," Zilax managed, his translator struggling to keep his voice steady. You absorbed a grade 7 antimatter detonation, direct exposure. Your body registered impact force equivalent to a starship collision. You should be dead?" Emma sat up fully, wincing. "Yeah, I feel like I got hit by a truck, or 20 trucks. Are the kids okay? Where are my students?" Her voice shifted from groggy to sharp in an instant, eyes focusing with sudden intensity that made Zilax step back involuntarily. "The children are fine," Azila said quickly, moving to Emma's side. "All 23 students, completely unharmed. She paused, mandibles clicking in distress. "You shielded them. Your body took the entire blast." Emma relaxed immediately. "Oh, good. Okay, that's good." She swung her legs off the medical bed, and both aliens rushed forward as if to catch her. She stood perfectly steady despite having been clinically dead 4 minutes ago. "So can someone point me to my classroom? I had this really good activity planned for teaching fractions with—" The medical bay doors burst open. Station Commander Kael'thas strode in, his ceremonial armor still smoking from whatever emergency he'd abandoned to get here. Behind him came 3 council observers, their recording equipment floating around them like nervous insects. "Human Emma Johnson," Kael'thas said, his voice carrying the weight of 40 years commanding deep space installations. "You will submit to immediate medical quarantine and—" He stopped, stared. His secondary eyes blinked independently, a sign of severe cognitive dissonance in his species. "You're standing." "Yeah?" Emma looked down at herself, noticed she was wearing a medical gown, and crossed her arms self-consciously. "Is that bad?" "You absorbed 4.7 terajoules of energy," one of the council observers said, their voice flat with shock. "That's enough to vaporize a cubic kilometer of reinforced durasteel. Your tissue should be scattered across 3 solar systems." Emma laughed, actually laughed. "Okay, that's dramatic. I just remember the explosion starting and I thought, oh hell no, not my kids." And then she frowned. "It got really hot, and then I woke up here." Zilax pulled up the security footage on the room's main display. The timestamp showed 47 minutes ago. The classroom was visible, a cheerful space with Earth posters and alien alphabet charts. 23 children of 7 different species sat in a circle while Emma explained something with animated hand gestures. Then the environmental processor in the corner began glowing. A manufacturing defect, they'd learned later. A microscopic crack in the antimatter containment chamber. The footage showed Emma's head snap toward the processor. 0.003 of a second later, she was moving. Not running away, running toward the children. Her arms spread wide as the processor erupted in a bloom of white fire that should have consumed everything within 50 meters. The council observers enhanced and slowed the footage. Emma's body had positioned itself between the explosion and every single child. The blast hit her back with the force of a dying star. For one frame, just one, her skeleton was visible through her skin, glowing white-hot. Her cellular structure had transformed into something else entirely, something that drank energy like a black hole drank light. The explosion wrapped around her, bent around her, and died against her. Behind her, 23 children sat frozen in perfect safety, protected by a human teacher's body that had become a living shield. That, Emma said, watching herself on the display, is a really unflattering angle. The medical bay fell silent except for the beeping of equipment that couldn't make sense of Emma's vital signs. "Ms. Johnson," Kael'thas said carefully, "do you understand what you did?" "I mean," Emma shrugged. "Yeah, there was an explosion. The kids were in danger. I'm the adult in the room. That's kind of how it works." "That is not how it works." Zilax's professional composure finally shattered. Every sapient species in the galaxy has the same primary biological imperative: survive. Self-preservation is the foundation of all evolutionary psychology. When faced with lethal danger, you evacuate, you flee, you protect yourself first. "But they're kids," Emma said, like she was explaining something obvious to a particularly slow student. "You don't run away from kids in danger. You run toward them." Azila's manipulators were trembling. "In my species, parents protect offspring until age of self-sufficiency, yes, but these aren't your genetic descendants. They're not even your species. 17 of them are from worlds you've never visited, and your body somehow knew to override every survival instinct, to transform your cellular structure in microseconds to—" "They're my students," Emma interrupted. "That makes them my kids. Biology doesn't really enter into it." One of the council observers played another video file. This one showed Emma 3 weeks ago during a fire drill. She'd positioned herself between the exit and the classroom, counting each student as they passed, her body literally blocking the doorway so she could ensure none were left behind. Another clip. Emma stepping between a startled Vexian child and an aggressive indigenous creature that had wandered into the recreation area. The creature had venomous spines. Emma had grabbed a broom. Another, Emma catching a falling piece of equipment that would have struck a student, her hand slamming down on the metal hard enough to dent it, ignoring her bleeding palm as she asked the child if they were okay. "Every instance," the council observer stated. "Every dangerous situation in your 4 months at this station. Same response pattern. You place yourself between threat and children. No hesitation, no calculation, pure instinct." "Well, yeah," Emma said. "That's my job." Kael'thas opened his communicator. "Get me Jotaro, now. I don't care if he's in temporal suspension meditation. Wake him up." This is a code paradigm situation. 20 minutes later, Jotaro materialized in the medical bay via emergency transport. The ancient Kethral looked like he'd been pulled from sleep. His robes were disheveled, his sensory fronds were tangled, and his usual serene expression was replaced by something almost resembling panic. "You said a human survived antimatter detonation through biological transformation," Jotaro said without preamble. "Please tell me your equipment malfunctioned." "Show him," Kael'thas said. They showed him. All of it. The explosion footage, the cellular scans, the energy absorption patterns, Emma's complete medical history from Earth, the behavioral analysis. Jotaro watched in silence. He was 417 years old. He had 3 doctoral equivalents in xenobiology. He had personally cataloged 847 sentient species across 6,000 worlds. His published works formed the foundation of modern biological science. He watched Emma Johnson's body transform into an energy-absorbing shield to protect children that weren't her own species, and his worldview cracked like thin ice. "This violates everything we understand about evolution," he said finally. "Self-preservation is the first law. The individual survives to propagate genes. Even social species with altruistic behaviors maintain cost-benefit analysis. You don't sacrifice yourself unless the genetic payoff exceeds the individual cost." He turned to Emma. How many of those children share your genetic material? None, Emma said. They're aliens. That's kind of the point of an interspecies school. Then explain to me, from an evolutionary perspective, why your body mobilized world-ending levels of defensive capability for non-kin. Emma stared at him. Because they're kids, and I'm their teacher. How many times do I have to say this? But why? Jitaro's fronds were standing straight up, a sign of extreme agitation. What possible evolutionary advantage does this behavior provide? You could have died. Your genetic line could have ended. For offspring that don't carry your genes, that provide you no reproductive benefit, that... Okay, wow, this conversation got weird fast, Emma said. Listen, I don't know about evolutionary advantages or whatever. I just know that when you're responsible for kids, you protect them. End of story. It's not complicated. It is complicated. Jitaro pulled up comparative data on the display. Look, Vexian parents protect young until maturity, then cut all emotional bonds. Kethral share child-rearing across communes with strict resource allocation. Zindari have calculated protection radiuses based on genetic relationship coefficients. Every species has logical, measurable protective instincts tied to survival probability and genetic investment. He pulled up Earth data. His fronds drooped in confusion. But humans run into burning buildings for strangers, jump into freezing water to save drowning people they've never met, throw themselves on explosive devices to shield their military units, shield children from gunfire in schools, step between predators and random offspring. And according to your historical data, you call these people heroes, but you also describe their actions as anyone would have done the same. Yeah, Emma said, because anyone would have, should have. That's just being a decent person. No, Jitaro's translator made his voice crack. No species does this. It's not logical. You should protect yourself first, then maybe kin, then perhaps allies with mutual benefit agreements, but you don't sacrifice yourself for genetic strangers. You especially don't do it automatically, without thought, in defiance of physics itself. Emma crossed her arms. Well, humans do. Sorry if that's inconvenient for your research. Kael'thas received an urgent message on his communicator. He read it, his face going still. The Galactic Council has reviewed the footage. They're invoking the Legends Protocol. The medical bay went silent. What's the Legends Protocol? Emma asked. Azila answered quietly. There's a list, maintained since the Council's founding 47,000 years ago, beings who performed feats that transcend normal biological limitations. Warriors who held impossible lines, thinkers who solved unsolvable problems, healers who cured incurable plagues. Across all that time, across 6,000 known sentient species, there are 149 names on that list. They're adding a 150th, Kael'thas said. Emma Johnson, elementary school teacher from Earth, first human to make the Legends list. They estimate you won't be the last. Emma blinked. There's a list? Like, with my name on it? That's actually kind of cool. Is there a ceremony or... They're also rewriting galactic safety protocols, Jitaro interrupted. Any station with children must now have human staff present. Human protective instincts are being classified as a Class 7 defensive capability. Insurance companies are restructuring their entire risk assessment models around human presence. Your species, one of the council observers said, has been designated as priority protection specialists. Every school, every hospital, every child care facility in council space will be recruiting from Earth within the year. Emma's eyes widened. Oh, that's actually really good. More teaching jobs for humans? That'll help with Earth's employment issues. She paused. Do I get, like, hazard pay for this? Because student loans are still a thing back home. Despite everything, Kael'thas laughed. It came out as a coughing sound. Ms. Johnson, you just became one of 150 legendary beings across 47,000 years of recorded history, and you're negotiating salary? I mean, rent's still due next month, Emma said. Being a legend doesn't pay for groceries. She looked around at all the stunned faces. Also, can I please go see my students now? They're probably scared, and I need to explain what happened in terms they'll understand. They're outside, Azila said softly. They've been waiting since you were brought here. They refuse to leave. Emma's expression softened immediately. Of course they did. They're good kids. She headed for the door, still in her medical gown, completely unbothered by the fact that she'd been dead less than an hour ago. The door opened to reveal 23 children of 7 different species, sitting in a careful circle in the corridor. Their parents stood behind them, beings from across the galaxy, summoned by emergency calls, who had arrived to find their offspring unharmed because a human had done the impossible. The children saw Emma and erupted. They swarmed her with cries in a dozen languages, small manipulators and tentacles, and hands reaching for her. Emma dropped to her knees and wrapped her arms around as many as she could reach. Hey, I'm okay, she said, her voice thick. I'm fine. Are you guys okay? Nobody got hurt? A small Vexian child, no bigger than a earth cat, burrowed into Emma's arms. You were sleeping, the child said in halting standard. We thought, the teachers said. I know, baby, I know, but I'm right here. Emma looked up at the parents. Some were crying, those who had tear ducts. Others were making sounds of distress or gratitude in their native tongues. I'm so sorry you were scared, but I promise I'm not going anywhere. A Zindari mother stepped forward. In her culture, physical touch with non-kin was taboo. She touched Emma's shoulder anyway. You saved my daughter, died for my daughter, for all our children. We have no words in any language sufficient for this debt. There's no debt, Emma said firmly. That's not how it works. I'm their teacher. This is what teachers do. Behind her, Jitaro was accessing Earth's cultural database with frantic urgency. He pulled up data on human teachers. The statistics were
staggering. Teachers who spent their own money on classroom supplies, who worked through illnesses to avoid leaving students without instruction, who stayed late to help struggling learners, who reported abuse, who provided meals for hungry students, who became counselors and protectors and advocates. And then the darker statistics. Teachers who died shielding students during school shootings. 27 verified cases in just the last century. Teachers who stood between their students and gunmen whose last acts were protecting children. Not military personnel, not trained security. Teachers with no weapons, no armor, no backup. Just their bodies and an unshakable conviction that the children in their care mattered more than their own survival. It's not an aberration, Jitaro whispered. It's not an outlier. It's cultural. It's fundamental. They actually mean it when they say anyone would have done the same. Kael'thas watched Emma surrounded by grateful children and weeping parents. We need to update the Legends List entry. This wasn't unique to her. This is a species characteristic. The council won't believe it, Azila said. They'll have to, Zilak said. He was pulling up more Earth data. Look at this: firefighters, emergency responders, soldiers who throw themselves on grenades, parents who lift vehicles off trapped children, strangers who dive into floodwaters for people they've never met. It's everywhere in their history. They have awards for it, medals, monuments. But they also treat it as ordinary, Jitaro added, his voice full of wonder. They call it doing the right thing, or anyone would have done it, or just part of the job. They genuinely don't understand why we find it remarkable. Emma had extracted herself from the children and was talking to their parents, assuring them about classroom safety improvements, discussing trauma counseling options for the students, asking if anyone needed her to stay late tomorrow to help with makeup work. She was planning tomorrow's lessons. After dying today, one of the council observers turned to Kael'thas.
Commander, I need to update our threat assessment protocols. If humans can unconsciously transform their biology to protect non-kin in microseconds, if this is a consistent species trait rather than individual mutation, then we need to recategorize them. As what? I'm not sure. Protective symbionts? Dedicated guardian class? We don't have a classification for a species that automatically sacrifices itself for others. It doesn't exist in our taxonomies. Create one, Kael'thas said. 6 hours later, Emma was back in her classroom. It wasn't the original room that was being rebuilt with enhanced safety features and, as the station engineer sheepishly explained, human-proof reinforcement. This was a temporary space, but Emma had already decorated it with cheerful posters and arranged the seats in her preferred circle. The students filed in quietly, still shaken. Emma
Greeted each one by name, asked how they were feeling, made silly jokes until she got smiles. Okay, she said when everyone was seated. So, yesterday was scary, but let's talk about what we learned. Who can tell me what happened? A small hand, manipulator, went up. You protected us. You should have run away, but you didn't. Right, Emma said. And why didn't I run away? Silence. The children looked confused. Emma smiled. Because you're my students. Which means you're my responsibility. Which means I take care of you. That's the deal. That's always been the deal. And nothing, not explosions, not danger, nothing, changes that deal. Okay? 23 heads nodded. Some of the children were crying again, but softer now, safer. Now, Emma said, pulling out her teaching materials. We're behind on fractions, and that's just not acceptable. So who can tell me what 1/2 plus 1/4 equals? Outside the classroom, Kael'thas stood with Jotaro and the council observers. They watched through the transparent wall as Emma taught mathematics to children who'd nearly died yesterday, as if nothing unusual had happened at all. Her name is being displayed on the Legends board in Council Central, one observer said. Beings from across the galaxy will see it. Emma Johnson, human, protected 23 children through biological transformation during antimatter detonation, first of her species to achieve legendary status. She doesn't care, Jotaro said. It wasn't a criticism. It was an observation made with something like awe. She doesn't care about the list or the legend status or the galactic recognition. She cares about those children understanding fractions. Kael'thas pulled up a communication from Council Central. They're asking for human teachers, hundreds of positions. Every council world with schools wants human staff now. They're calling it the Emma Protocol. Any facility with children should have human protection. What do we tell them? The observer asked. We tell them the truth, Kael'thas said, watching Emma laugh at something a student said. We tell them that humans don't think they're doing anything special, that they'll show up, teach their lessons, correct their assignments, and if danger comes, they'll step between that danger and the children in their care without thought, without hesitation, without expecting recognition or reward. And we tell them, Jotaro added quietly, that we've spent 47,000 years defining courage as the ability to face danger despite fear. But humans have taught us a new definition. Courage is the reflex to protect others before you even process the danger yourself. Inside the classroom, Emma was helping a struggling student with equivalent fractions. Through the classroom's window, the stars glinted cold and distant. And somewhere in Council Central, on a display that hadn't been updated in 3 centuries, a new name glowed alongside legends who had reshaped the galaxy. Emma Johnson saw it later when a student pulled up the public display on their learning tablet during break time. Teacher Emma, the child exclaimed, you're on the legends list. You're famous. Emma glanced at the display, saw her name glowing among beings who'd ended wars and cured plagues and discovered new laws of physics. She smiled.
That's nice, sweetie, but right now we need to focus on your homework. You're still not showing your work on these fraction problems, and I know you know how to do it. The child deflated slightly. Even legends have to do homework? Especially legends, Emma said, grinning. How else would we have gotten legendary? Now show me your work. In his office, Kael'thas composed his official report to the council. He tried 17 different openings before settling on something simple. The humans call it just doing my job. We call it courage that transcends biological possibility. The gap between these perspectives may be the most important discovery in council history. Recommend immediate expansion of human teacher recruitment programs. Also recommend we learn from them, not just their capabilities, but their perspective. They genuinely believe protecting others is ordinary. Perhaps with their help, it can be. He attached Emma's medical scans, the explosion footage, Jitaro's biological analysis, and one final video. Emma back in her classroom, teaching fractions to children who were alive because she'd done the impossible. And in that classroom, Emma wrote the homework assignment on the board, made a terrible joke that got her students laughing, and planned tomorrow's lesson on multiplication. Just another day, just another teacher, just another human, doing what humans did. Impossible, ordinary, legendary, all at once.